Of course the election should be canceled. Everything else has been canceled. Even church is canceled. Why shouldn't it be canceled until you should be required with your ID in person to go vote? The days of mail-in voting should be long gone, because this country has gotten so polarizing, where everyone is deleting each other off social media that doesn't agree with your own views. It is so polarizing. We are living in a new age where mail-in voting should be canceled, the way that Aunt Jemima pancake syrup is canceled and Paw Patrols is canceled because there's a dog police officer on it, and 1,000 other things are canceled because they are things of the past and things that society doesn't jive with anymore, right? So, of course, mail-in voting is a thing of the past in a time where things weren't polarizing. Nobody gave a fuck if it was Obama or McCain. Nobody gave a fuck if it was Bush versus Clinton. Nobody really cared. I mean, freaking 2000, that was a rigged election, right? Gore versus Bush. Nobody cared that they rigged it in Florida. Like, there were no riots and protests. Can you imagine if Trump rigs it, there'll be riots, deaths, and crazy amount of stuff going on, because we are in a polarizing time. I just can't comprehend it. I cannot comprehend how of course, Democrats, they're not thinking the things I've just said in this video, or they're totally just laughing behind the scenes. But it is so obvious that mail-in voting will absolutely bring massive fraud these days in an age of polarization at the maximum it could ever be, with the most hated president that this world has ever seen. And you all want to allow people to anonymously send in mail-in ballots and not require voter ID in person. Like, oh, that's voter suppression to require that. Are you Yeah, right? Because it's so hard to go get an ID. Yeah, well, if you're poor and you can't get an ID, then you know what? You shouldn't be allowed to vote, because where the hell are you getting any information to even vote in the first place, right? Like, you probably don't even have a TV or what? Like, you're so misinformed if you don't even have a freaking ID to go in person. Like, that's the Democrats' argument, people. For those that don't know what I'm saying when I say voter suppression, like, Democrats accuse Republicans of voter suppression because you need to have a vote. They want you to have an ID to go vote in person, which is such common sense. Just like everything I said here is such common sense that, of course, the election is going to be rigged with mail-in vote fraud, fake ballots exploding. Like I said, there will be more than 500 million votes this year, both sides finding ways to submit fake ballots. And if all these passionate Trump haters are willing to do so much crazy shit and rioting and everything, then of course they're going to be trying to figure out how to vote 2, 3, 4 times. So it's just that's why I hibernate. That's why it's scary to know too many people, because people are really disappointing. That their brains are so pathetic that you can't think about this stuff that I've just said. Maybe I just woke you up.
By mail and have done so for decades.
Okay.
Even the U.S. military uses mail.
All outdated. Decades, nothing to do with today's factors.
So
before Donald Trump raised concerns about
Do it. Say it.
major public
No.
My time, sir.
That's not where I was going with it.
No evidence that for me, the president tweeted, and I quote, "Mail-in voting will lead to massive fraud and abuse. It will also lead to the end of our great Republican Party."
Absolutely.
End quote.
I wasn't aware of that.
Mail-in voting is going to be massive fraud.
The president is spreading disinformation
No, he's
about
not.
mail-in ballots because he's afraid that if more people vote, he and his party will lose. The fact, Mr. Barr,
Right here. Bullshit.
is that our foreign adversaries cannot actually influence our elections by submitting massive...
I'm sure they can, and
counterfeit
Americans
ballots, but the
absolutely
FBI
can and will.
intelligence with the political
Decades and
director-
decades of mail-in ballots and voting, and there is no fraud. It's a normal thing to do. There's no evidence of it. Well, guess what? Politics wasn't polarized.
Senate candidates in the 4 months
20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So now here you go, where we are in the most polarizing years of American history, where Democrats and Republicans, they hate each other, they don't even social media together, and everyone's just in their own little bubble, right? In their social media worlds, reading and feeding off each other in our own little ecosystem bubbles. And he doesn't ever say what this point is. So you got the most polarizing time in the history of politics, and you have the most hated president in the history of America by Democrats because he wants to keep illegal immigrants out. And, you know, Democrats just want to say everyone's equal, let everybody in. And, you know, some people get offended so easily. So Trump is the most hated president in the history of the world. Maybe he's more hated than Hitler, right? Because politics are so... Is he gonna... No, they don't even let him say anything that's important. So Trump is maybe more hated than Hitler was, right? Because literally, like, Democrats hate Trump so much, they are willing to do anything to get rid of him, right? Right? I mean, give me a break. So maybe there is no evidence of mail-in voting fraud in the past elections because nobody really cared. Nobody was fired up like I am right now, like you are too. You hate Trump or you love Trump. Everyone is so fired up, so passionate. People are willing to do anything to get rid of Trump if you hate him. Why wouldn't they do something so simple as mail-in voting fraud, right? Like, look, welfare fraud, Social Security fraud, unemployment fraud. That happens, right? People are willing to fill out the form fraudulently and lie and say they lost their job to get free money. You might be one of those people. You got free money because you filled out a form, very easy to do, or you typed it out online, very easy to do. But how many of those people that do those kind of frauds would actually do it if you had to go in person to a unemployment office and show your ID and do this, you know, kind of like an interrogation thing? 1% of you, if that. There would be no unemployment fraud if you had to actually show up in person and apply and like swear under oath and all that, right? No, you don't have to be in person. You just do it online. You just do it by mail. And that is why there is unemployment fraud. That is why there is welfare fraud. That is why there's Social Security fraud. People die and then the kid keeps collecting the payments because it's so easy to do. They didn't have to do anything, right? Why are there bank robbers versus people committing bank fraud? Why are there so few bank robbers, right? Like, people committing bank fraud online, it's like thousands and thousands. The white-collar crime online is so unprosecuted because it's so easy to do, and you can hide and never show your face and never be in person. How many people actually go and rob a bank in person? Very, very, very few, because you have to go in person, right? And people don't want to do that. They don't want to risk it. But when you could commit bank fraud online, rob a bank virtually, of course, there's way more people willing to do that. So now here you got this election, the first election, or maybe the second election, of the most hated president ever, and the more polarizing than 4 years ago. People hate Trump 50 times more than in 2016, right? And it's going to get all these Democrats to be willing to do anything to get rid of him. So now you got this pandemic, which was so coincidentally put right here in 2020, right when it's election. Right, like that, and BLM and the protests, everything. And you could go risk your life for protests, but you can't go risk your life to stand in line for the election in November. So we need to let everyone just mail in their ballots. Hey, and there's no evidence of fraud. Look, it's been happening in all these years. All these states, they've been doing it, and there's never been widespread fraud. Well, yeah, because there hasn't been Trump as president. There hasn't been the most polarizing years of the entire history of America. So, of course, you have the most polarizing time ever and the most hated president ever, and so conveniently able to just commit fraud to get rid of the guy you hate. Why? Of course, you don't have. These people don't have stock market accounts. These people don't care. They don't care to keep buying shit from China, plastic from China, the trade deficit that we're bullying China back and making things fair now. They just hate Trump so much because their feelings got hurt, right? Your feelings got hurt. You all need to retweet this. This needs to go viral because it is so obvious. Of course there will be mail-in voting fraud. The Republicans are going to even out this playing field and make millions of fake ballots. because the Democrats are just pushing masks on people's faces to create this perception of a Armageddon, post-nuclear world, to make everyone subliminally so scared, looking around, all they see is mask, 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 and everything shut down, and the most economic suffering, and the more people hurt and out of work and not able to pay their bills, the better, until November 5th or 6th. November 6th, right after the election, then, oh, no more masks. Oh, the virus isn't such a big deal. All of a sudden, CNN's not doing round-the-clock 24/7 coverage. I swear, Democrats are rigging this. They're trying to make it so simple to commit fraud and to vote against Trump 50 times. Some people will vote so many times. There will be fake ballots. There's no security on mailing in a form and just putting people's names down or getting dead people's social security cards. It may not have been widespread in past election years, but now that it's Trump, the most hated man ever, and people have gotten so outraged at him for 4 years, and it's the most polarizing days of our history, you better believe, of course there'll be mail-in voting fraud. Democrats are going to rig this shit. They already do. We're just evening out the playing field. They just bring in chain migration, importing more and more migrants into this country. Here, have welfare. Here, have free money. Just vote Democrat. Same thing. Kanye says it too. You're a slave to the Democratic Party. Just voting for Democrat just because they're going to give you free handouts. So Democrats want to say, oh, voter suppression. Yeah, well, we're just even out the playing field from all your bribery tactics, Democrats. And Democrats are going to be just stuffing the ballot boxes with fake voter forms. And so Republicans better be doing it too. Trump, you better be employing Russia and everybody, all Republicans in America. I don't know who's behind it, who can get behind it, how to get 50 voting applications each and put different names on them. But we got to do it because Democrats are certainly going to do it because it's the most bullshit thing ever. You could go protest. Governors, Democrat governors and mayors are all encouraging protests nonstop, screaming, yelling, vandalizing, blocking roads. But churches, parishioners, pastors getting fined, arrested. No religion. Don't practice religion right now. But you could go practice protesting. And you can't go stand in line to vote on November 5th. That's scary. Don't risk your health. So just mail in a ballot. Yeah, right. Like, this is Trump's fault. You really think so? It's so funny. You really gonna blame Trump, huh? For some people dying. Old people dying. More old people have been dying because of the protesters spreading the virus than the virus was going to kill people anyways, because it's just a slightly worse version of the flu. That's a fact. It's a worse version of the flu and the hysteria of the media, and then these Democrat governors and mayors are making everyone wear a mask and shutting the economy and no school. And I swear, as soon as the election's over, it's just going to be night and day difference. You are all China puppets and just totally falling for this shit like this is a coincidence. The year of the election, China, who hates the trade war and hates Trump, unleashes this virus, and then BLM protests all happen, and Democrats are encouraging all this stuff, right? And they are secretly loving it, and they don't want any relief to happen, and they don't want you to go back to work. Right? That's why these $600 a week stimulus checks are more money than the jobs that all of you had. They don't want anyone to go back to work. They want all businesses suffering. They want everyone to stay home collecting the free money until after the election. And then Biden he's not even who you voted for. He will die within a couple years. And he is literally just doing whatever Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren said. So you are literally just China's puppet if you really think Trump is causing this. Absolutely. This year, for the first time ever, if it hasn't happened in the past, there's no evidence of it. That doesn't mean anything. Common sense. Common sense, people. Of course there'll be mail-in voting fraud this time around. Absolutely. If all you willing to riot and destroy and kill, of course you're going to try to do mail-in voting fraud. Why wouldn't you? Of course there's some groups, Soroses and all that of the world, that are going to try to do massive mail voting fraud, arranging it behind the scenes. Oh my God, it's so much common sense. So, Trump, just call off the election. Just go on national TV with a secret announcement and proclaim the election is off. Or else this is just going to be there's probably going to be like 500 million votes, 500 million ballots, because both sides are going to stuff the boxes full of shit, full of fake ballots, duplicates and everything. And the final counts are going to probably be more than there's even people in the country. It's hilarious. It's such a joke. Cancel the election, Trump.
and say, we'll try again in November 2021. Do not allow the Democrats to take you out of office this way. They're doing you dirty. The writing is on the wall. It's so obvious. It's so pathetic. It's so disgusting. It's so sad how half this country are such gullible little bitches. You have no brains for yourselves. You're such sheep.